I'll go ahead and start because I think we've got enough people here and we recorded this. As everybody's seeing, you're getting a notification that it's recorded. Hello, thank you for attending our La Plata Democrats Club Luncheon. The goal of the club is to bring together all Democrats from the most conservative to the most progressive to celebrate our shared values, appreciate who we are, and work together to put more Democrats in office. I'd like to acknowledge our Club Lunch sponsor, Albrechta and Albrechta Law Firm. They've been supporting this lunch for several years now. If you need legal help, please think about Albrechta and Albrechta here in Durango. Our speaker today will be La Plata County Commissioner Marsha Porter-Norton about what's going on in our county. And I'm not going to say more about that because it's a lot. Everyone is asked to stay muted except for the speakers and myself and Gwen Unger, who's going to help with questions. If you want to submit a question different from the ones we might ask during the lunch, please use the chat feature on Zoom. And Gwen will pull your question from there. Please do not unmute yourself and speak, but send your questions to everyone in the chat window. If you're having trouble with internet connectivity, you may want to disable your video. Audio only works better if you have a slower connection. This Zoom meeting is being recorded and it'll be available within a day or so for viewing on the laplatadems.org website. You can choose speaker mode during this lunch, typically in the upper right corner, which will bring up a larger video of the person speaking. Otherwise, what we see now is called gallery mode. I'd like to encourage everyone to donate to the La Plata County Dems in this non-election year. It keeps our office rented and we can accumulate funds ahead of the need for next year. Monthly donations are particularly appreciated. So however much you can give, just set it up and say monthly. And you can set those up on ActBlue. Monthly donations make it easy to give to the party with little pain. This is our 5th club lunch for this year. We're working hard to bring some great programs and we may switch to in-person at some point, but not right now. So we're talking about all this because a lot of people want to go back to in-person. And I will say part of it is looking for a place that'll give us a good lunch for under $25 or even under 20. If anyone has any other announcements to make, please enter it in the chat. And we'll recognize you at the end of the luncheon when I do announcements. So I'm going to introduce Marsha Porter-Norton. Marsha grew up on a cattle ranch and farm in Lewis, Colorado, north of Cortez. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in social work from Colorado State and a Master of Social Work from University of Denver, the Denver campus. She's been a professional facilitator owning her own consulting business for 20 years. Now she's a first-term commissioner from District 2, which is the city of Durango in general. Having served in office since January 2021, after winning a very close election, her motto is, every vote counts, it really does. And we know that, look at our city council, somebody lost by 4 votes. So Marsha currently serves on the boards of San Juan Basin Public Health until it dissolves, and the Regional Housing Authority, and is on the advisory committee for the Wildfire and Watershed Protection Fund, which is a project she helped start in 2021, working with Durango Fire and the city of Durango. She is also an ex officio member of the Colorado Commission on Indian Affairs and SWORD, which is SWORD, a regional council accepting the state's opioid settlement funds. I hope she talks about that. All right, Marsha Porter-Norton, over to you.
Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to see all of you and whoever may join us. And I appreciate being offered the chance to talk today. La Plata County, the more I serve in local government, the more grateful I am for all of you that work so hard in elections, first of all. And secondly, the more I see every day how local government can make a huge difference. So thank you for the chance to serve. I'm going to give a PowerPoint, and I told Gwen when I start talking about the county, I can go on for several hours. And so to make sure to tell me when I need to cut off and make sure that we're getting questions answered. I know, Lori, you got yours in the chat, and I'll answer that to the best of my ability. So I'm going to share my screen, and I am very characteristically horrible with technology. So Gwen can walk me through if necessary. There we go. Are you seeing that? Gwen, I think you're on mute.
Yes, we see
You
it.
are seeing it. Okay.
We got it.
All right. Let's see. Let's go. Now you're seeing the wrong one, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Let's try it again. Let's try one more time. Share screen. I'm going to go to this one. All right. I think we're here. Okay. Now can you see that?
Yes.
All right. All right. La Plata County moving ahead. That's the theme. We are working on so many things, and just wanted a chance to talk about what those things are. All right, I'm gonna have to pull thumbnails over because for some reason my forward and backward isn't working. So I always start by grounding people and I feel like everybody on this call, I'm preaching to the choir a little bit with people that know about your own community, but I'm always kind of amazed. Sometimes people confuse me with Barbara McLaughlin and ask me how things are in Denver. And I say, I don't know, I haven't been there 6 months. So I like to get everybody, which is an extremely high compliment, I must say. I like to get everybody grounded in where we are. So counties are subdivisions of the state of Colorado. And the reason that is so important is that we work very closely with Representative McLaughlin and we think we can call him our new senator anymore, but our newish Senator Cleve Simpson, who lives in the Animas Valley and who's great. Both of them are moderate and they work together. And I'll talk about a key piece of legislation they helped get us through this year. But we are subdivisions of the state. And so a big part of what the county does, and my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Salka and Commissioner Church, is we work with our lobbyists, we have 2 lobbying firms to really shape state policy because we are a subdivision or an animal, you will, of the state of Colorado. And I didn't quite realize how many implications that has for local government until I was elected. There's 3 commissioners. You can see the map on the left is our planning districts that our planning department uses. And I love this map because it shows just how very unique La Plata County is. From where many are in Durango, which is the more gray area right in the center, down to the very, very southeast part of the county. That's where you go if you live in Durango or near Durango and want to go to Navajo Lake or go out to the Southern Ute Indian tribes homeland. You go out there, of course, over on the left side of the county, Fort Lewis Mesa. Some people call that the dry side. The dry side is technically to the west of the La Plata River. So that the entire Fort Lewis Mesa is the word, Florida Mesa, and on and on. We have a population of 56,932 people. That's pretty much bumping up to 57. And we will be at nearly 60,000 in just a couple of short years. It's kind of amazing the growth we're seeing in La Plata County. When I moved here in 1994, there were 30,000 people. So I'm going to see it double very quickly. The median age, of course, is almost 40. So I just had a big giant birthday that has a 6 in it. And so I'm aware of our median age and how we have a very young population, but we also have many, many younger children and many, many seniors. And the job of a commissioner is to look at everybody. 41% of our lands are public lands. And that's something I care very deeply about. We have 653 miles of roads, and only about a third of those 222 miles are paved. So a lot of gravel roads out there that are in various different types of shape, if you will. And then the Southern Ute Indian tribe is here. It is a sovereign nation. When we work with the Southern Ute Indian tribe, it is a government to government relationship. They have 750,000 acres and 1,500 enrolled members. At the bottom, you can see our budget. La Plata County has a pretty healthy budget this year. $145,931,617 in expenses. The revenue, excuse me, is 101,726,523. And so you may wonder, where are you getting the difference? The difference is out of our fund balance. Sales tax has been very good to La Plata County, just like many governments during the pandemic. And just in general, more people living here, more people buying things, more visitors, and all of it. So we've been able to do some very good things, primarily because of our sales tax. So go on to the next slide. I'm going to do just a little bit of news here, and we'll get to the all of these are substantial issues, but get to the news here. Just a couple of pieces. I don't know if they're breaking news, but I thought that was kind of a neat graphic. We have a new strategic plan this year. So when this goes out, you can Google it, La Plata County Strategic Plan. Our last plan was actually 14 years old. The last time it had been updated, it was called the La Plata Compass. And the tack that we have taken with our strategic plan is to have very broad goals and then keep it live. And so a lot of people like words and visions and goals and key result areas, and we have that on one page on our website. But then what we felt like was most important is, what are we doing in each of those topical areas, whether it's livability or housing or economic development. And so we started to nest under each of the areas in a clickable fashion. What is happening either at the county or where we are a partner. So for example, if you're interested in housing and livability in La Plata County, you can click to the Regional Housing Alliance webpage. And so that's important, is we're not looking to have a strategic plan that is a lot of wonderful words that we spent 3 days crafting. We feel that people in La Plata County are action oriented and want to be able to click to things that show how is the county engaging with that particular goal. So you can find it at this website, and if this doesn't come through, you can certainly just Google La Plata County Strategic Plan. We have, as I said, over 600 miles of roads in the county. And it has for years been known to the public that our road and bridge budget has something called a structural deficit. And that is a fancy word for saying it runs behind every year. So the county commissioners met in a retreat in April. We have set this as our #1 priority, is to really give our roads and our bridges, including multimodal. So I am a giant fan of multimodal. It reduces emissions. It helps us get exercise. It is expensive, just like paving a road is expensive. So is putting in a bike path. But we have a $140 million deficit from now until 2030 in our road budget. And so that is like, if you look at what we need and then what we have, there's a gap there of 140 million. It's a lot. And so we are going to start, I think, instead of going to people immediately with some kind of a tax increase, we have taken a tack that we want to engage citizens, hear what they think, give them a basic packet of information so they understand what the structural deficit is about, and then look at what we might do in the future. 2 ballot initiatives have failed around increasing the road and bridge tax. I worked on one actually as a citizen in 2016. And I think they failed because I could talk all day about why I think it failed. I think a lot of times people like living on an isolated gravel road, that's their life and that's their lifestyle. But as we see growth in the county, some of these roads are not becoming the isolated gravel road they used to be, and they're becoming major thoroughfares, and it's super expensive to do them. So look for roads to be like top of mind for us, because they're our biggest asset. They're used by school buses, they're used by bikers, cyclists, they're used by you to get to work. So sometimes roads and bridges aren't very glitzy to be talking about, but I can't tell you how important it is as a commissioner that we look at this issue. The other thing is we're going to be looking at road impact fees. It's been talked about a long time. There's a general principle here about growth and development paying its fair share. A lot of time at development, when it goes in, it's impossible or maybe not even fair to have it pay like all the costs. But when we're looking at just basic equity and the way we want our county to grow, development paying its own way is a very important principle. So we're going to be having another work session actually this year on impact fees. And that there's a extremely complicated formula and nexus. You can't just go put them anywhere. We can't say we're putting an impact fee all over the county. It has to be a nexus to where growth is. And so anybody can weigh in on that. We have been getting a lot of calls and emails on the closure on County Road 240. If you live up on 240 past the closure towards Vicedo or Helen Store or Lemon. We were going to do that project last year. It got bumped to this year, just like everybody. We are a victim, if you will, of some of the things that went on during the height of the pandemic, which is supply chain issues and labor issues. So it's happening this year. And we know people, it's a very inconvenience to go around, but we have the county engineers and our road and bridge department needed to take off both railings of the bridge. So we obviously couldn't keep one lane open. So if you've been inconvenienced, please, I ask for your forbearance and patience. And we'll have to go around. We're trying to get it. There's been as much county resources as we can flow to this, including overtime, hoping to get it done a little bit even ahead of schedule by the 12th of June, and if not, shortly thereafter. So then in other big news, this might also be one of those topics that's not the most glitzy in the world, but to us it's very important. And that is that La Plata County took over a closed landfill in the early 90s. And nobody wants a closed landfill. No, a private person is going to go buy a closed landfill. It's out near Bayfield. And the state of CDPHE kept asking the county to essentially sign a consent document that we called it a blank check provision. So the state of Colorado was saying, we want you to sign a contract that says there's a blank check here and you'll pay to clean this up. First of all, it's very important for everybody to know there is no water being polluted by the closed landfill. And we have 65 different kinds of wells out there monitoring water. They're called sparge wells, which let the gases come off. And there is no way that this set of commissioners would ever allow water to be polluted, water wells. So we've been honestly in a pretty big tussle with the state around this, went to court under a previous set of commissioners, although I would have supported it too, went to the Supreme Court of Colorado and unfortunately lost on one point. And so we found ourselves saying, how much time and energy and legal money do you put into this? Let's try to find a solution. And so our attorney, I want to give her a giant shout out here, Cheryl Rogers, she's been involved in this issue for years, devised a bill. And of course, we helped shape it. And we're very proud of this. We worked all summer to call every county in Colorado that is in Colorado Counties Inc., CCI, our lobbying group, and we got 100% support for our bill. And it's the first time in Colorado County's history. So we ran a bill, 231194, and Commissioner Salka took the lead because the landfill is in his district, and Barbara McLaughlin, thank you, Representative McLaughlin, for carrying it. Thank you, Cleve Simpson, Senator Simpson, for supporting it. We got it through the legislature. We didn't get everything we wanted. We wanted some really substantial changes to the way CDPHE deals with communities around these issues. We didn't get everything, but that's called sausage making in the legislature, right? We got a fund populated with beginning $15 million. And the way the criteria is written is La Plata County will be very high on the list, and it will help you, the taxpayers, not be needing to pay as much to remediate the issues at the Bayfield landfill. So I'm super psyched about this. It's democracy in action. And I really want to thank our previous commissioners. Julie Westendorf worked on this really hard. Again, our county attorney brought her incredible mind to the table. Commissioner Salka was on Zoom after Zoom and meeting after meeting, and we got it done. And now we'll be in rulemaking for a while and eventually can apply to the grant fund. And again, that helps us do the right thing and get the things done out at the landfill that we need to get done and not cost our taxpayers so much money. Because by the way, nobody wants to take on these landfills that are closed across Colorado. I know many of you are interested and commented on our oil and gas regulations. It was a very arduous, long process. I was going to do a show and tell and show my notebook, and it's about this thick of drafts and public comment and memos and on and on and on. The reason we had to do this is that by the way, people who have gone before me as commissioners, including Commissioner Lackelt, Commissioner Josh Joswick, who I just had coffee with. It was a great time to see Josh. Worked for years, 30 years on oil and gas regulations in our county. We already had a very good set of oil and gas regulations that were very hard fought and developed over decades. However, the state of Colorado in 2019, hopefully not 1919, 2019, passed something called Senate Bill 181. And then they did 3 years of rulemaking on it. It was sea change in Colorado and in the country. Colorado now has the strictest oil and gas regulations in the country. And just like with anything, La Plata County could never go weaker than those regulations. However, we had some areas that we could decide if we were going to go stronger or stay about the same as the state. So when I talk about our oil and gas regulations, I really want to talk about the fact we operate with the state of Colorado. And I can't believe the sea change, because what SB 181 did is it said that oil and gas in Colorado is regulated to protect the environment and public health. So it shall be regulated in a way to protect the environment and public health. If you think about that from a public policy perspective, that is an incredible sea change from increasing and maximizing production, okay? So let's set the context. So we had 2 years of meetings, including with industry. We had meetings with the public. We had meetings with pretty much anybody that we thought, lots of opportunities, I think 17 opportunities for public comment. In addition to, as our county manager always likes to say, if you have something to say, you can always come tape a note on the door if you want. There's many ways to talk to us. One of the hot points of our regulations were setbacks and how far we were going to go. A lot of people wanted us to do a hard setback of 2,000 feet, and we chose not to go that direction. We don't have zoning in La Plata County. It would have been very hard to do, probably opened us up to different kinds of legal challenges, frankly. But I think we got to a really good set of setbacks, both for high occupancy buildings, for residences. And one thing that came forth particularly strongly from our agriculture and our rural people is what happens if you have, I'm going to do a square here, okay? What happens if you have a big, let's say 200 acres, 400 acres, and you have your hay fields, which we all, I think, really support agriculture in the county. And we didn't want it so that the oil and gas operation would have to go in the middle of a field. Because a lot of the agriculture that you see, especially in the eastern part of the county, but also the western, sometimes they are able to stay in agriculture because of the money, the royalties they're making off their wells. So what we did, and it was also just to accommodate just a tremendous amount of input, is we did bring the setback. Now remember, the setback starts at 2,000, a la state of Colorado. Our question was, where do you go down to? So for lots that are legal and created before August of this year, August 1st, you can go to 200 within from a structure, essentially. And what that did, and we don't think that this will apply to that many people. Most people want to put their house or have their gas well, depending on if it's reciprocal or not, go as far away from their house as they can. So that was a bit of a thread the needle that we got to at the last minute, but we have protections for, again, high occupancy buildings such as nursing homes and childcare centers. Financial assurance was a really big topic in our discussion, and financial assurance is what do we require of the operators and to basically make sure we don't have oil and gas facilities and locations and wells and pipelines and such that are that have too many surface impacts for our residents, whether it's nearby neighbors or surface impacts related to roads or weeds. So we asked for and in our regs is financial assurance around surface impacts. Many people wanted us to do downhole financial assurance, and that would mean that we would have some kind of financial assurance for plugging abandoned and orphaned wells, which is extremely important from a methane perspective. We chose, it's at this time, not to do downhole financial assurance because the companies pay into a fund at the state. And also there is federal infrastructure money coming in to the tune of about 30 million. So the state has 40 million in money. This was as of, a couple months ago, it might have been drawn down. That La Plata County, our orphaned and abandoned wells, and we've seen the list, we know where they are, they get on the list for getting that money for cleanup. And as with most things, it's always kind of shocking to me how complicated things are. But the point is we want to assess that in a year and make sure that our wells are getting cleaned up and abandoned and orphaned wells are getting plugged and cleaned up at a very fair rate in relation to the Front Range. And so we didn't do financial it's called downhole. So we did financial assurance for what's on the surface, but not downhole, but we're going to assess that in a year. A lot of people also further wanted us to regulate methane. And of course, just conceptually, it's something I really agree with. It would have cost us about $1 million a year. Most of the wells in La Plata County are owned by the Southern Ute Indian tribe, and they do a very good job of regulating methane. And so I'm going to throw out some numbers that please take them. I don't have them right in front of me, but there's roughly 3,200 active wells in the county. La Plata County regulates about 400 of them, and the rest are regulated by the Southern Ute Indian tribe. Now, if you really want the precise numbers, I can email them to you. But the point is, the tribe came in and talked to us, did a wonderful presentation, and they are doing a lot around methane regulation. And with that kind of a price tag to set up another program, we decided let's continue to see how we might partner or understand more what the tribe is doing. So oil and gas is a big deal. If you wrote in or came to a meeting, thank you. Sometimes these processes are very laborious to follow, and I appreciate everybody who hung in there with it. All right, public health, another big piece of news. As everybody knows, I'm not going to go into it unless somebody wants to put a question in the chat. We have dissolved the public health department that has been operating in our region for 70 years. I want to give a giant shout out to the people at San Juan Basin Health. They work extremely hard. They have developed, and I'm on the board, so we can say they have developed a model public health agency, not only for Colorado, for the country. And frankly, it's sad for many people to see it go. The dissolution had been in the works actually for over a decade of grumblings between the counties about different kinds of things. I won't go into it, but the pandemic certainly laid bare a lot of differences between us and Archuleta County. And they actually initiated the dissolution process in 2021. And it came to pass that the Board of Health recommended a dissolution. That then meant that both of the counties needed to quickly scramble, and we've been scrambling ever since, in a good way. I think our staff are doing incredible work to get a new department going by 1/1/24. So when you go out to Sawyer Drive on 1/1/24, you will see a La Plata County sign. I love this graphic, and I think we can figure out a way to get it something in the chat for my PowerPoint, but you can see I had no idea till I got on the Board of Public Health everything it does. It's communicable disease. Goodness, didn't we just learn about that for 3 years? Prevention, investigation, but it's also animal-borne illnesses and things that spread. It is an incredibly communicable disease, and all of that is incredibly important. Environmental public health, our water quality, our air quality, restaurant inspections, septic system, all of this is so important. I've had people say, well, public health doesn't impact me. I didn't get a vaccine. Public health doesn't impact me. And my immediate response is, do you eat in a restaurant? If you do eat in a restaurant, it impacts you. If you live by a creek, it impacts you. If you drink water, it impacts you. And then there's a whole range of programs about making our families and maternal health and child health healthier. whether those are clinics or helping new parents, new moms. The WIC program is a bread and butter program that's under that one. Chronic disease, injury prevention, and behavioral health promotion. I am extremely proud that we have used our ARPA dollars to fund the first harm reduction program in the region for opioid use. And it helps people get to treatment, and it helps them, it avoids overdoses. So that's where substance abuse and those kinds of things, suicide prevention, come in. And then finally, access to care and linkages. How do you get signed up for health insurance? How do you get cancer screenings and those kinds of things? We do have, as you know, and I'm happy to answer any questions about this, we have a transitional board in place. And as with anything, you are building it and flying it at the same time. It seems like that's an overused word during the pandemic. It really became apparent to us that the commissioners needed to have the hiring ability and some administrative flexibility, while the new transitional board, which was seated and has amazingly great people on it, really focused in on which of those programs do we bring over from San Juan Basin, and how do we do that? So we have been, the commissioners, when we made that decision, we stuck to the original timeframe, and we have 2 director candidates to present to the public, and we will be doing that Thursday night. So if you want to come by and meet them, there was an article in the Herald. It's at 5:30. Our offices are 1101 East 2nd, and you can meet 2 candidates. And that transitional board, this is something there's been confusion on, becomes the full Board of Health on 1/1/24. And the commissioner's role is then, like many commissioners in Colorado, our role will be budgetary. And the Board of Health will, you know, the public health director will report directly to that new Board of Health on 1/1. So lots of questions about that. I can't thank our staff enough. I can't thank the people who are involved in this. And again, thank you to all the people at San Juan Basin. You know, this is a hard time for them. And change is really hard. A dissolution of an entity is very hard. And I appreciate the staff who are there, and they're showing up and doing their jobs and helping the people of Archuleta and La Plata County every single day. All right, I want to make sure I'm not, Gwen, you can tell me when to watch my time here. I know Lori and others on the call, and Karen, and many of you care deeply about affordable housing, either because it impacts you or it impacts people around you. It is what we have been doing as La Plata County. I'm going to focus in again just on La Plata County. Is really, we had to take a hard look at what is our role in housing. It is a crisis. Nobody disputes that it is a crisis. And so what is our role in housing? And we had a retreat last year. We were instrumental. I certainly would not take credit for this fully, but La Plata County was instrumental, and I give Julie Westendorf a lot of credit for this, in keeping the Regional Housing Alliance alive. It is a quasi-governmental entity, and you can kind of see our, you know, this is one of the social media posts that is done every month. And so one of the roles of La Plata County is to make sure that the Regional Housing Alliance is successful. It is a for-government entity, and we have 1 member at large. It has all kinds of duties and powers conferred upon it by the state of Colorado. And so that is important. It can pass a bond if the voters vote for it. It can float a bond for housing. It can get grants. It can run housing projects. It can do all kinds of things. So one of the ways, we are not setting up our own housing department as La Plata County. We feel that really supporting the RHA, and I don't know if many of you know this story, it almost went out of existence in about 2017. And then again, Commissioner Westendorf said, that doesn't make any sense. We have housing needs all over the place. Let's resurrect it. And we started meeting again. Frankly, it took a little bit of time to figure out how we were going to work together as governments and what we were going to do. So one of the things is standing up the RHA, which is the 3rd point down here. Another thing that we're doing is we have, over the last 2 years, dedicated or allocated 10 million to housing. And that, when I started looking at those numbers, I was like, whoa, I didn't really realize it was that much. So we've started our own revolving loan fund with ARPA dollars. And that's where the funding for the loan for West Side and Triangle mobile home parks came from. That is going to save over 120 units of housing. Elevation Land Trust, of course, bought it. And I know Karen and Kirby have been so involved in your co-op. And I think our community can be so proud of these two co-ops because it is the people who did it. It isn't elected officials or bankers, although you need those, right? But it is the people coming forth and saying, how are we going to shape our own housing and our own future? And I got to tell you, one of my best days on the job is when we gave a loan to Westside, and we were hearing through the first time we'd ever heard a translator, hearing people come forward, many who are not, or, Spanish is their first language, and had such a great community support. And then later Triangle came into the mix. We have private activity bonds that are assigned to us through CHAFA. We've assigned those. We're in the process of doing that now. And last year we did the Best Western over on 160. That's going to be 120 units of rent controlled housing. Super excited about the city of Durango putting that in. We have been funding to nonprofits. We give funding to Housing Solutions and Homes Fund specifically. And then we have budgeted our own money. A lot of times what affordable housing needs is they need to govern the governments to step up and do some big ticket things like a road or sewer, which we do not provide sewer or water. So we have given or allocated or budgeted, those are depending on what we're talking about, over 10 million the last 2 years. And we have 2 million in private activity bonds right now that we're assessing how to use those. We've had 2 requests for those. We think that it doesn't make sense. Any housing anywhere in La Plata County is good if people can afford it. But the best place for housing to reduce emissions and make sure we're being efficient with resources is near the towns and city. So we made a decision. We're not looking to go put housing out in the middle of nowhere. If it goes in, it goes in, and it's usually somebody building a house or perhaps putting an ADU in, or perhaps putting a modular for an elder relative or grown children to live on their own property, or just putting a modular in to rent. So we're focusing really on how can we support the municipalities in getting housing closer to the municipalities. I mentioned focusing on the Regional Housing Authority. The Catalyst Fund, I'm super psyched about. So, and this is where it gets a little wonky, apologies, and Lori's been at all these meetings, and appreciate all citizens who come to our meetings, of any meeting of any kind. So you have the Regional Housing Alliance that was started up with 4 governments, and then the Economic Development Alliance of La Plata County has determined that workforce housing is their #1 priority. We can't grow jobs and income in La Plata County because housing is such a constraint. I just heard yesterday 9R is going to send me the study, but our 9R school district, I do not know yet about what the numbers look like for the other school districts. They're losing school-age children. And that isn't good for a school district. It's not good for a community to be losing those young families. Well, I think you don't have to be a rocket science to figure out the reason is housing. And so what the Catalyst Fund, so what we had is economic development. We had an RHA that had, 4 governments. We have money to give to the RHA, but we were trying to figure out how to develop a plan. And then you have the Economic Developments Alliance that actually did do a plan called the 3-year workforce strategy, investment strategy. And I put it in this PowerPoint. So we decided to get married, so to speak. And the Economic Development Alliance has hired a staff person. Her name is Sarah Tober, and she is now implementing that 3-year strategy. So this gets very process oriented, a little policy wonk, apologies, but I've been very humbled by how complicated housing is in my 2.5 years in office. The first thing that we started to do with the 3-year strategy, the first thing to implement is something called a Catalyst Fund. And the goal is to populate that fund with about $2 million. And the county gave $250,000 of ARPA to it. And I consider housing to be a petri dish. So you need the private sector, you need workers to build it. If anybody's looked at the housing project that's going in up by North City Market, you see, workers, you needed land, you needed the city to do deed restrictions. There's all this whole plethora of things that are needed to come together. And so the Catalyst Fund has been set up as a fund that can help entities, private entities generally coming forth, and or a nonprofit, by the way, that may want to do housing, or an individual or a developer to come forward, and maybe they need a feasibility study, or maybe they need an appraisal, or maybe they need an infrastructure assessment. Maybe they need a site plan. And so the first round of Catalyst Fund monies are about to be awarded. There were 5 applications. And if all of those units go in, now there's a big if there, you don't count affordable housing until it's built and people are living in the homes, right? Affordable and workforce. But if all of those go in, it would be over 200 units of really affordable housing in our community. Now, AMI is a whole nother discussion, and we can have that discussion, but we need housing at all ends of the continuum. I think having this debate about affordable or workforce isn't always as helpful as saying we need housing everywhere. That's why La Plata County did the West Side deal. Is those people living in West Side are as much in our workforce as people who are, you know, making an 80% of an AMI or 120% of AMI. So my argument is, where can we get a workforce and affordable housing done? What's the Petri dish? The Catalyst Fund, I'm just super excited about it. I have to give Michael French and Sarah Tober at La Plata Economic Development Alliance a lot of credit. They're the ones implementing it, but it's something. Like I always say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And the Catalyst Fund is a real place to start, in addition to all the other stuff we're doing. Another thing the RHA is doing is they're really playing a role on bringing stakeholders together. We have a big workshop coming up in July where we'll have the state here. We'll be pulling, any of you would be welcome to attend. It'll be 2 days of intensive. We're not starting at 101. It's how do we get housing done for La Plata County? We're hoping that the developer and building community can be there, because you can't do it without them. We just have to have those people that want to do below market housing, as Lori uses that word. It's a good one. So be looking for that there. Or you can email me and I'll make sure you get the invite. So pulling people together. We're also tracking grants. There's a historic amount of money available right now. We're tracking grants through the Regional Housing Alliance, so that you don't want 10 entities going to the same funder for the same project, you know. And so it's that idea of, does the left arm know what the right arm is doing? And then finally, La Plata County is really pretty close. We have a finalist that for our Community Development and Planning Department. If any of you are interested in that, there is a meet and greet. I believe it is tomorrow. And if that person is indeed hired, our Community Development Department will have a new director. And there are 4 new hires in our Community Planning Department. So they're going to all be as a cohort coming forth. And one of the tasks on their list is to make sure that our own land use code, from the county perspective, is as housing friendly as we can be. It's been a long time coming. Code work is very, 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 what's the word I would use? It's complicated. And so we will be scrubbing our own code to say, what can we do to further housing? So I hope that gives everybody a good sense. And at the end, Lori, I will make sure that I can get to your question in the chat. All right, so next we're going to go on to a topic Karen said you were particularly wanted me to talk about. Substance abuse and mental health is another priority of this set of commissioners. I have to tell you, I live in Durango, and I've seen 4 instances of people on Main Street having behavioral health crises. And we see it everywhere. We saw it at Purple Cliffs. We see it now, and I'm happy to talk about the unhoused issue. I'll talk about that when we get to the ARPA slide. So we had 22 deaths from substances last year in La Plata County, overdoses and alcohol related deaths, where that was on the coroner deemed it was related to substances. So it's a really important issue. We saw during the pandemic this issue affect children, teens, families, individuals. And so what are we doing about it? Well, first of all, there's a lot of nonprofits out there, including Access Health Systems, private counselors, Mercy, Centura. A lot of people come to the table to solve this issue. Durango Police Department has a crisis responder program. La Plata County is just kicking one off with its sheriff's department. We do have opioid dollars coming into the region from the settlement with the pharmaceutical companies. AG Weiser, one of my favorite elected officials of all time, I must tell you. He is everywhere at once. Every time I look at his Facebook page, it's like, where's Phil today in a different part of the state? He's amazing. So he has taken the lead on developing councils across the state. I think there's 19 of them that accept opioid dollars. Ours in Southwest Colorado is called SWORD, Southwest Opioid Regional District. It's 5 counties. it looks like, and again, don't hold me to this number, there's a dashboard that is going to change once we get all the latest settlements in. We'll probably get close to 8 million and from those settlements, and that I know that's not a lot, but they have this whole complicated formula. But what we're wanting to do is leverage that money to get more treatment to this region. If you didn't read in the Durango Herald, the wonderful series they did on people needing treatment, really appreciate the Herald doing that. For years, I've heard, oh, we can't have intensive treatment here in Southwest Colorado. We just can't do it. Well, I heard about this treatment facility on the Eastern Plains that was 11 counties and their combined population was 30,000 and ours is 100. And so I said to myself, this makes no sense. And a couple other people, namely Region 9 Economic Development District, their director, Laura Lewis Marchino, we got together in 2021 and said, let's study that issue so we know when people say we can't have treatment, is that true? So we got, thank you to our two senators, we got 150,000 of congressionally directed spending to do a study. Thank goodness it's coming out this month in draft. Again, email me if you want it. We're going to hear the first results of the study on the 14th. So we spent the $150,000 with a consulting firm that knows what they're doing, content experts, to tell our region, what can we do to step up treatment? Is that inpatient? How would that work? How much would it be? Lots of details. All these things are detail management, right? Is there recovery housing? Is there a crisis center we need? Because often people have co-occurring problems between mental health crises and substance abuse. It's more common than probably not. We get that study in June this month, and then we need to act. As the county has put a vacated youth detention facility on the table called Denier, and then we got 1.825 million in congressionally directed spending. We can use that. The county's donating that building. It is a jail, so it would have to be completely remodeled to be a place of caring, and of course, compassion and trauma informed. But we're going to have our work cut out for us once that study comes in, and we know where we can get a regional consensus. And then the opioid dollars can be spent for many things, but hopefully to help leverage solutions to get, not just poster campaigns and, radio ads, which are important too, but some really, really deep things that our region needs. Gwen, how much more time do I have?
So Marsha, it's about 12:50. We're starting to get a fair number of questions in the chat. So if you could kind of finish up in the next 10 minutes, then I think that would give us enough time to get into the questions.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, broadband. I know a lot of you are interested in broadband. I certainly am. I'm lucky that I live in the city and I have pretty good broadband, but I can't believe the stories we hear of people that, their kids were going to the McDonald's parking lot to get their homework done during the pandemic, or a library. And of course, our libraries play just this critical role. We have that, and if you really have a question that's deep on this, please get with Commissioner Salka, because he's our lead. He has an IT background, but I can do my best. So again, I always ask, what's the county role? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to be a deliverer of broadband? No, we're not a private company, but we can facilitate, catalyze, and help. We have allocated 25% of our ARPA money, that's nearly 2.5 million, to be, and there's all this historic money happening right now. So we've allocated money to a project on 151 that will help with redundancy in our region and bringing middle mile from Pagosa to Durango, and then working with the tribe and La Plata Electric in Archuleta County, looking to get it on that eastern part of the county, and that's called the Highway 151 project. Lots of complexity in getting an agreement signed, but we have done a grant match on a DOLA grant. Region 9 Economic Development District is taking the lead on this for our region. It takes dedicated staff to get all this done. There is a $66 million grant pending from a federal entity called NIDA. And if we get that grant, there are going to be historic strides made in broadband. I'm not going to promise it would be for everybody in the county that wants it everywhere, but 66 million is a really good chunk. I really need to commend the Southern Ute Indian Tribe. They are working on broadband. If you've gone to the airport recently and seen people alongside the road, you see the orange cables going in, those are broadband cables, and they are doing an excellent job of bringing broadband to their members. And we're working to say, where can we all work together? So if you have super detailed questions, please get with Commissioner Salka. We also we have an empty building at the Old Main Post Office. The plan isn't to have that be empty forever, but there is a basement, and there is going to be a new carrier neutral location in that basement. So pretty exciting. Again, our job is to support. What is a CNL? In case you needed to know, I certainly did. These are facilities that allow interconnectivity between multiple carriers and co-location providers. So a CNL, we're using basically having our building be a CNL right next to my office, actually. All right, so the next one we have is ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. Thank you, President Biden and Congress and our senators for voting for this. La Plata County got initially, and between 3 tranches of money, over $11 million. And this was $60 billion to counties nationwide. We initially set up, we did public meetings on how would people want us to spend this money. And we decided, instead of doing things like premium pay, even though that would have been super valid, that we wanted to do things that really were long lasting and that directly impacted the pandemic. Some counties went and spent their money on roads or jails or whatever. Fine, that's their choice. We wanted to really have it be tied to the pandemic. We allocated 35% to the social, mental health, educational, and economic impacts of the pandemic, 25% to broadband, and 40% to housing. And so I will just list a few things. A new ambulance for Durango Fire, because they have so many behavioral health crises, they needed a new ambulance. A new roof at our regional 911 call center. After school and summer programs, we've allocated $3.5 million to nonprofits to do everything from language and food equity to especially working with youth who are struggling with mental health impacts of sort of the backwash, if you will, of the pandemic. That's where the West Side and Triangle loans came from, grant matches for broadband, Catalyst Fund. Durango Food Bank is getting money for a new location. Pine River Shares has gotten a big grant to do food security in the Pine River Valley. It kind of goes on, and it's a lot of money. I mean, United Way has a campaign of about $500,000 a year. We allocated $3.5 million to address these human and impacts of the pandemic. One thing I'm really proud of, 2 things, actually. Well, I'm proud of all of it, and by the way, the county's not doing all this. We're partnering with nonprofits and water providers. So we have a big giant partnership here going on to get these monies out. We have a water dot going in on the western part of the county. That's something I advocated for, because people were having to drive 50 minutes round trip to get into Durango, and then at times wondering if Durango was going to cut off the water dock to outside county residents. So super psyched about that. And then lastly, one thing I'm really psyched about is a bookmobile for the Ignacio Library. They're going to cover the entire southeast part of the district, remember the map, and do mobile hotspots for kids. So really excited about that bookmobile and hope to see that. So any questions about ARPA, let me know. The road ahead, I thought this was a funny picture, kind of looks like Red Mountain Pass, but I think it's in another country. We have lots of roads ahead. One is, and I will wrap this up and not be too extensive about this. I know there are questions. We have $2 million in grants we've secured for Wildfire and Watershed Protection Fund. That is to do landscape scale restoration, working with our federal and state partners and city partners. We are focusing on the Florida River corridor, and that is Durango's water source. And we have secured through federal grants and we are one of 7 communities in Colorado that became something called a co-swap grant through the state. So there's $2 million that is being deployed to help homeowners do mitigation on their own property. And I have to thank our staff on all of these slides. Please start my presentation with thank the staff. They are working really hard through Shauna Lagarza, our emergency manager, and Allison Lehman, our Wildfire and Watershed Protection Fund coordinator. That project is done with the city and Durango Fire. Just today, we have a new energy code for La Plata County that I'm really excited about. It will facilitate energy savings in homes for new construction and the addition. We didn't go up to the 2021 code. We took the recommendation from the group that developed this and went to the 2015 code. And we soon will have a new fire code. It's on our agenda next week. Durango Mesa, moving the fairgrounds up there, that conversation is going to be happening this summer. We are waiting to hear on costs. It's a very costly endeavor. So we have to figure out how to pay for it if it's going to happen. Short-term rental policy, people are interested in that. I know Anita, I think, was on here. We know it's an issue in the county. It's not an issue in a uniform way throughout the county. We're going to do a survey to understand what are the hot spots, what are the issues, and then we will start a public engagement process to look at policy around short-term rentals. I talked about road impact fees. I'm super excited to talk about in 2024, we are going to convene public engagement process to determine ways that our communities, including the county, but being inclusive of all of La Plata County, can be more resilient in the face of climate change. And that could look like water conversations, wildfire conversations, ride share. I was talking to somebody yesterday that wants the bike trail up to Hermosa. There's all kinds of things we can do as a county and as a little C and big C county around climate change. And so we're going to start those conversations next year. We have gray water regulations in front of us that we'll be looking at. Weather radar, look for a golf ball on a 70 foot high tower next year at the airport. And that's going to be our new weather radar that we have worked very hard on for several years. And then we're doing sessions in the county around living rural. We have so many people moving in the county. Do they know about fences and gardens and the growing season and gates and cattle and ditches? And let's start the list going on and on wildfire. So we've done two really great sessions, one in Bayfield and one in Breen, of getting the commissioners out. We take our staff out, and we're doing this with CSU Extension, by the way. But I'll stop there. I know that, like I said, once you get me going on these things, I can go a long time and take any questions that you have. And I'll stick my, well, first of all, I just want to say you can email any of us anytime. You can write, call. We have office hours, but our office hours are every day. You can set up an appointment and you can come to a business meeting and give comments. So we're very open to hearing what you have to say. And here's my contact information. All right, questions? Okay,
I'm going to go to the chat. Some of these questions you could probably talk about for 15 minutes apiece, but we'll run out of time here. But maybe we can go through them pretty quick. So the first question says, many municipalities in Colorado develop, own, and manage below market housing. Market rate housing in Durango is easily $600,000 to buy and $2,000 a month for rentals. Do our officials anticipate a market solution to below market housing? How can we Democrats support local county efforts to provide below market housing?
Lori, thank you for that question. First of all, I don't think the market's going to solve this, or it would have done it. I think the market is a very, we have to admit that, right? Housing is primarily a private endeavor, but it's not solving it, or we wouldn't be in this crisis. So I believe when it comes to affordable housing, look, we need everything. We need everybody to be operating on all cylinders. The RHA, as I said, has come out of hibernation and is doing what I outlined in the slides. But I know Ignacio is looking at a project called Rock Creek that would be 49 units. And we are looking at allocating a third tranche of ARPA money, nearly $700,000 to help. They just got a big giant DOLA grant. Cinnamon Heights in Bayfield, Lori, where you live. So the municipalities are really stepping up. As far as below market, I think you have to look at it by municipality. The city of Durango doing the Best Western, that's pretty incredible. I will totally resonate with the point, though, that we need housing at all ends of the AMI spectrum. We do. And we need housing. I've heard a story of a radiologist or somebody, I don't know the title, forgive me, who reads x-rays, that was recruited to the region. I'm not going to tell you by who. They spent a lot of time, flew the person in, got the person lined up. They could not find housing, and it was going to be $89,000 a year job. And so we need it at all spectrums. We need it for our sheriff's deputies. And this number might be a little old. I know 5 or 6 of them live down in New Mexico. And we had to get a state law change so that they could drive their cars from their home to their job in the southern part of the county. So I think that I just would simply say, Government should and can always be doing more, but we're doing a lot. And we're always open to hearing what people want us to do. I could see the RHA someday, I'm speaking as one person, someday getting, once we are now fully out of hibernation, I will say, but I would love to see the RHA be running housing at some point. They do that in Montezuma County, they do that in Pagosa, they do that in Gunnison. I hate to use the word we have to crawl before we can run, because we need to be running right now. But how do you start running? You start training and building up to it. So I ask everybody, I mean, I'm not asking anybody to be patient because it's such a crisis, but just to say that, yes, absolutely, the RHA and the governments need to do everything. And I don't think the market alone is going to solve it. It's just not. Or we'd be right there, right? Now, in some cases it does. You see in the city, how many rental, high density rentals are coming online. But when I hear they're 1,500 to 2,000 for one bedroom, that's not gonna get the whole entirety of the workforce. You know, it's not gonna get the person cutting my hair. It's not gonna get the person working at the laundromat. And so we need to be caring about everybody to retain our ability to be a true and real community. That's where Kim Baxter used to say that, and I agreed with her 100%. All right, next question.
Can the roads and bridges structural deficit adjustment come from the National Infrastructure Bill? Is there any way to use funds there?
It certainly, where we can find grants from that to help, yes, but not over time. And let me tell you why. The reason is those are usually for one-time projects, which are great, but we need it like everywhere based on a schedule that we approve every year. But it costs about $1.5 million. This is a rough number to pave 1 mile of road. And so a grant that comes in that's 10 million or 15 million can be really great for one project. But what we need to be doing is making a dent in that list that is the 140. And we don't anticipate it's fully can come from grants. We used to have a pretty good chunk of severance grants coming in from energy development. Those have waned over the years as our energy sector has gone down due to other parts of the country being more lucrative for drilling. A lot of people blame it on our regulations, and San Juan County, New Mexico has a mirrored jobs and income and production and have fewer regulations. My only point about that is we need to be pursuing those grants, but we also need a sustainable source of revenue. And by the way, this year and last year, we were able to allocate, because our sales tax was doing so well, sales tax from our general fund before it hit the general fund. Long story, thank goodness for our finance department to figure out how to legally do this. But it was $5 million each year. And when you look at that $140 million number, we're just not going to touch it unless we look at revenue.
Okay, this is more of a comment. Maybe you can take a second to say something about it. Coming from Lori. Says there's tons of research validating that the newborn home visiting program, like we have, saves up to $9 for each $1 we spend on it, and increased employment, decreasing police costs, and on and on.
Yeah, San Juan Basin has a program like, is that the one you're talking about? Yeah. The commissioners specifically are not weighing in on which programs to bring over. That's our new transitional board's job. And when we get a director, the reason it's a she is that there's 2 female finalists. So the commissioners are simply weighing in on the hiring of the director and the administrative. But that program, I can tell you, is a bread and butter public health program. You're absolutely right. It's the spend $1 now, save hundreds of dollars later in incarceration and mental health costs, cost to our own Department of Human Services, frankly.
Okay, we have a question from Jessica. Says the debt limit compromise includes a clawback of unspent COVID funds, referring to the bill that was just passed. Will that affect La Plata County? Specifically, several grants were awarded from COVID funds but have not yet been spent. Will those grants be clawed back?
Very good question. I was just talking about that with somebody today. First of all, that clawback hasn't gone through yet, and it didn't go through to my knowledge. So the clawback is a effort on the part of people in Congress that are wanting to bring our government to its knees fiscally and not spend money on the kinds of things I think many of us care about. And so the clawback provision is something that our lobbyists and our national lobbying organization, NACO, works very hard on. And we get action alerts on it. And all of a sudden, the representative and senators' phone lines light up. We have, what we did with our ARPA money is we used it, and please bear with me a little bit here on a little bit of policy wonk here, in order to avoid that, because ARPA has to be spent by the end of next year. So 24. So what we did is we technically used ARPA money to pay our bills for a couple of months, which was legal. And then we pulled down ARPA, so we have our ARPA money. And so the promises we have made, both for all of the ARPA money that I went through, those will not be clawed back. That is La Plata County money. So great question. But the idea, I mean, it's stupid to tell counties all across the country, you have 2 years, because some of these projects, we're seeing this with broadband, you don't figure out how to spend the money in 2 months or even 6 months. They take a lot of project development. And so Congress gave counties till the end of 2024. And I'm always sad and disappointed when I see those Congress members trying to claw that money back, but we're not going to let it happen.
All right, the next question, you may have partially answered this, but are there any federal lands like Forest Service lands available to use for affordable housing?
Yes, that's a great question. There are state lands. There is I don't think we have John Whitney on here. And by the way, Commissioner Church is on here. Hi, Clyde. There are, I'm forgetting the name of the bill. I apologize. John Whitney just sent it to me. There's a bill that is going through Congress that would allow the Forest Service to essentially deed or let community groups use vacant Forest Service parcels for housing. And it needs to be passed. And we actually had a site visit to a project, or to a, it's not a project, excuse me, to a site that will remain unnamed. But I went on a site visit in the last 3 weeks to such a parcel. If that bill can get passed, that would free up 70 acres for a project, and it's in a great location. I will tell you, just to set expectations here, I've been very humbled by housing and how hard it is. So I always try to set expectations and say, this is an opportunity, just like about 10 others that we know about, but with enough political will, I think, in getting that bill in place, there are some vacant parcels that federal agencies specifically, now going out and carving out a piece of virgin forest for housing, that probably isn't as much a policy that I would support, but there's an inventory of housing that federal agencies have, and the Forest Service specifically, that we're eyeing, and other communities have done this. They did it up on the White River. And so that's one of those things I've learned with all of these things. And that's why I'm so excited to have Sarah Tober, who is working with the Economic Development Alliance to implement the 3-year workforce development strategy, because what we were lacking for a couple of years is to take an idea like that one and have somebody that has knowledge and content expert. And I have always said, I need somebody working 40 hours a week who sits at their desk and has a phone and has the files and knows how all this works. Because I'll tell you, I can come up with ideas. We can all come up with ideas. You really need to give it over to somebody that can run with a ball. But there's several ideas in the community that I don't want to promise that in like a year from now, we're going to feel like the housing crisis is solved. I would not be being transparent. I hope we're going to solve it for a lot of people. We, the collective, not just the county. And that is an example, that project I told you about is an example. And I can go ahead and ask the question, Gwen. I can see about what this bill is called so you can track it. Go ahead.
Okay, so Jan asked, does RHA in any way coordinate with Southwest Housing Solutions?
Absolutely, we do. In fact, one reason the RHA has selected the things that we're working on is Housing Solutions is looking, they primarily serve, and I think everybody knows this, Elizabeth Salkind is their director. She's amazing. Their staff are amazing. They do what are the typical and traditional affordable housing programs. And again, these terms get interchanged a lot, but affordable tends to be 80% of AMI and under, workforce is 80% and above. And again, I think we need to get out of any feeling that let's compete against those two categories, because we want to be a diverse community that supports everybody. What Housing Solutions does is they do HUD vouchers. They opened a Sparrow, an amazing complex in Durango that is transitional housing. They run Southwest Horizons Ranch. They get stuff done. And so we decide, you know, RHA would never want to step on the toes of either Housing Solutions, Habitat, or Homes Fund. And so that's another reason our role has been defined to do what we're doing. It's funding, policy, code, stakeholder collaboration, grant tracking, and those kinds of things.
Okay, I think that's the last of the questions. I know that Karen has some announcements to make.
All right.
So perhaps we can go there.
First of all, I'd like everybody to, you can unmute and yell and just appreciate Marsha Porter-Norton for coming on and giving us just about the answer to all our questions about the county. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
It feels really good to have you guys working. Your team, Clyde, you and Matt, it's what a team.
Well, thank you. I deeply appreciate it and appreciate all of you and everything that all the rest of you do. The county can never get anything done alone. We work with nonprofits. We have a staff of over 430. We work with other commissioners, state and feds. You know, we don't do this alone. So thank you very much.
And I hope we see you Saturday, Marsha.
Put a little note
Saturday night.
I'm going to be rafting the Dolores River. I am so sorry. But I will be with you in spirit.
Send us pictures.
I will. Thank you.
All right, on Saturday at noon, Adam Frisch will be in town. He's our CD candidate, one of many now. There's quite a few candidates, but our primaries are coming up next year. And Adam is forming his basis by meeting even more people around town. So if you haven't met Adam, or if you have friends that haven't met Adam, bring them to the 11th Street station from noon to 2. And he'll be there to do a Q&A. And then that night he'll also be, he won't be a speaker because he's not he's not the candidate yet, but he'll be at our fundraiser, which is called the Roosevelt's Dinner. And it's at 5 o'clock at the Fort Lewis Ballroom. And
it's sold out.
I know, I'm going to wrap up with that. But if you want to get on the waiting list, let Ann Markward know. And the keynote speakers, this is the amazing thing. We have we have a lot of young activists that are coming around now. So the Dems are trying to wrap them up into giving presentations like Teal and Austin will be doing on Saturday, all about water. I'll also link Teal's TikTok presentation. Well, if you guys have the TikTok app, it is worth it just to get Teal Leto's information. She is called at Western Water Girl on TikTok, and I'll put that in the chat. But she has 58,000 followers. She's only been doing this a year, and every single TikTok she puts up is another nugget of incredible information about water in not just Colorado, but of course the whole thing. So, and then I also made a note that area median income is now 104,000 in Durango, which is kind of good because it allows more people that are at the 80% of AMI. Since it's now 104, I'm thinking that would be in the 80 range, right? That's considered low income. I mean, what kind of world, anyway, but it's great because they get to apply for more things. So let's all remember that low income is people who are doing pretty well. And there are a lot of people in the next two rungs, very low income and extremely low income. So we have a lot of those in Durango. And then Ann is saying it's sold out, but she'll put you on a wait list, and she put her email in there. And then Lori Roberts says, if you support everything Marsha's doing, having the RHA really increasing their capacity, a characteristic of Democrats is we believe in competent government. Great, Lori. And I put Marsha's email in there. And Marsha bought a scholarship ticket because she's going to miss the dinner. Thank you, Marsha. And the bill she referred to is Flexible Partnership Act, supported by Bennett. So that is good. I'm going to write that down and get a number. Thank you all. If anybody else has any announcements, put it in the chat right now while I say this last thing. Our next club has been moved from the first Tuesday of the month to July 11th because of the July 4th holiday. And we always need volunteers, so you can sign up at laplatadem's.org and keep an eye out for our emails announcing the next Zoom luncheon. So I don't see any. Lori says you can join the RHA this Thursday from 2 to 4 on the second floor of the main mall. You go in and you turn left, right? Isn't that the Fort Lewis Center for Innovation in that area? And then Ann has put an article in there about the bill. So this is awesome. I'm going to look that up and start pushing it out everywhere. And do you remember what I said I would put in the chat?
Just save the chat.
Well, I know I got to save it. Okay, well, anyway, I don't have any more. What do you have, Gwen? Anything?
I think that's it.
All righty. Thank you all for coming and participating, and this will be recorded and available on the website.
Thank you. See y'all around.
All right, you can stay on, Ann.
Yay.
Good to see you, Clyde and Lori.
Thanks for your great work.